it's kind of astonishing that Resident Evil has been around for 30 years at this point. I mean, I'm filming this in 2025, and it's not the 30th anniversary until 2026. But it's a series that's remained consistent with its releases. You could argue whether the quality of those releases were any good, especially during like the era of late 2000s to early 2010s. The Resident Evil series kind of just fell off a bit with RE5, RE6, and Umbrella Corps. God, I wish I could forget Umbrella Corps, but RE5 I quite liked. Some people didn't, but RE6 it kind of went off the wavelength of what Resident Evil was supposed to be. And you could argue that that trend started with Resident Evil 4, and yeah, I would kind of agree with that, with the whole action focus, because Capcom, for some reason, they were trying to focus on the Call of Duty crowd, and honestly, the Call of Duty crowd doesn't want to play Resident Evil. If they wanted to play Resident Evil, they would. But the Call of Duty crowd will ultimately want to play, well, Call of Duty. But Capcom were like, no, we're going to make it more action focused. And yeah, RE4 was action focused, but it still retained the sort of atmosphere, the horror, and a certain degree of survival horror in the series. But after that, Capcom went back to the drawing board in the mid-2010s, where we would eventually get the excellent Resident Evil 7, which shifted the whole genre into first person, which I know first person is not everyone's favourite in terms of like perspective, but ultimately it set the series back on track. But before that, we got news of Resident Evil 2 remake being worked on, and it was literally just like kind of something like you go, yeah, could have been an email sort of thing, but basically a guy stood in front of the TV saying we'll do it, and they had Resident Evil 2 in the background, and people were excited because people for years have been asking for a remake of RE2, because RE2 outside of 4 is probably my favorite game in the franchise. It's probably a joint first between the two. I know I say I love Resident Evil 4, but Resident Evil 2 is probably up there with Resident Evil 4. And I love the remake. I've been replaying it on Xbox One X recently. I bought a physical copy for the console, even though I got it digitally on PlayStation 4, to play it through. And this 6 years later, it still holds up so well, because originally when I played through it, as I said, I played on PlayStation 4. I got sent a review code back in 2019, early 2019, 2 weeks before the game came out, when I used to work for my local magazine when I used to live in Bristol. And I couldn't believe it when I got sent a code for the game. I was like, what? I get to review one of my most anticipated games of that year early, 2 weeks before it came out, which made for some interesting conversations with my friends when they used to look at my trophies list. I just go, yeah, I got sent it 2 weeks early, that sort of thing. And I loved it, and everyone else loved the game too. It was getting flawless reviews from both the critics and community. And it was like, okay, Resident Evil's back. And it did away with the fixed camera angles. It was third person, but I remember in the interviews, the developers were stressing like, this isn't Resident Evil 4, because you can't just gun everything down. But I'll get into more of that sort of stuff further into this video. Yeah, in 2019, Resident Evil 2, came out, and it was great. And we would get a remake of RE3 the year after, which I might do a separate video for. People don't like that remake, but I personally don't mind it. I think it's okay. I think it's pretty good. People are just pretty negative towards that because negativity sells on YouTube, but I digress. And then 3 years after the RE3 remake, we get the RE4 remake. And I suppose at some point we'll get a remake of Resident Evil 5, judging by the ending of Resident Evil 4 remake. But getting off track here, Resident Evil 2, yeah, replayed it recently, quite appropriate at the time of recording this, kind of the spooky season, so I thought, why not do a video about it? I've collected some footage and I want to go over the game, so let's go over the Resident Evil 2 remake, and yeah, let's get into it, shall we? So, let's start at the beginning. Resident Evil, the original, was released in 1996 on the original PlayStation and Sega Saturn, and it wasn't always conceptualized as the fixed camera angle survival horror we know it as today. Originally, it was, in concept, a first-person shooter, because the popularity of FPS games like Doom at the time, because there were loads of like Doom clones on the market at the time, and ultimately that concept was scrapped, and Shinji Mikami went and looked at inspiration from game like Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark is widely considered as the first survival horror in the genre, like as we know it, like the fixed camera angles from that period. that game laid the foundation for what survival horror games were going to be during that period. A few games adopted it. I mean, Resident Evil, then you had Silent Hill, although Silent Hill didn't quite have fixed camera angles. It was more a 3D environment with a moving camera angles. But Resident Evil took the concept of Alone in the Dark and dialed it up and ultimately made it better. And yeah, Resident Evil was very popular on the original PlayStation, not so much on the Sega Saturn, because the Sega Saturn was more expensive and visually Resident Evil didn't look great on the Sega Saturn. But the original Resident Evil was fantastic. And then not too long, we got a sequel in 1998 with Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation, and it did get an N64 release later, which is a very impressive release because they managed to basically squeeze both discs of this version onto one cartridge with all the cutscenes too. Resident Evil 2 is widely regarded as one of the best in the series, if not the best in the series. It's one of my favorites. It's, as I said in the intro, it's tied with first Resident Evil 4 with me. It still holds up remarkably well, the original PlayStation version, which I can't say for the original Resident Evil. The original Resident Evil, it creaks, to say the least. It really creaks. Not to say that this one's perfect. It has some quirky dialogue, to say the least. But the original RE2, to me, still holds up exceedingly well. This is my battered copy I bought from a retro shop about a decade ago for $5. It's not a $5 anymore. But yeah, it's just so good, Resident Evil 2. It took what the first one did and did it better. It dialed up the action, but not so much where it became Resident Evil 6, shall we say. But it was fantastic. It took like the zombie outbreak from like a one location to a citywide outbreak, and it was fantastic. And we would get Resident Evil 3 in '99, and then eventually Shinji Mikami would remake Resident Evil 1 on the Nintendo GameCube. And it was only like, 6 years after the original release, 2002, the GameCube remake came out. But Shinji Mikami said in an interview back then it was the game that he wanted to make, because the PS1 obviously had quite limited hardware, even at the time, and he couldn't quite see his full vision on the PS1. Whereas the GameCube remake, even to this day, still holds up remarkably well. You could get the HD port on Xbox and all manner of platforms, but Resident Evil 1 remake on the GameCube's art style still looks absolutely amazing, and maybe they'll remake that in the new RE engine. There's rumors of it, but after that was released, people were asking, when are they going to do the same thing for Resident Evil 2? And after the remake of the first one, nothing for 20 years almost. Nearly 20 years, and we got nothing about a remake of Resident Evil 2. There were rumors about Resident Evil 2 remake for about 15 odd years, but it wasn't until 2015 they announced they're going to do it. Then they went quiet again, and it wasn't until 2018 we would get a look at the GameCube, at the remake of Resident Evil 2, and it was gory, it was terrifying, and we wouldn't have to wait long to a release until January of 2019. And then we did get the remake of Resident Evil 2. And consider it as a 6-year-old game, still fantastic. I'd say this is, again, one of my favorite games in the series, even though it's literally just a remake of one of my favorite games ever. But it went back to survival horror, like 7 did. Then we'd get 8 a bit later. But yeah, it took the foundation of the story, the world of RE2, and changed the gameplay mechanics for better or worse, depending who you ask. For better in my book. But yeah, Resident Evil 2 is so good, and yeah, I'll get into the gameplay in bits now. So, story elements and gameplay of Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's still similar in terms of the narrative of the original. You play as either Leon S. Kennedy, a rookie police officer on his first day on the job, a really bad first day on the job, I might add, or you play as Claire Redfield, who's looking for her brother Chris Redfield, one of the protagonists from the first one. And instead of you starting right in the city on fire, the game starts at the petrol station at the start of the game, which you only see in cutscenes, the diner sort of thing in the cutscene. And it's a great build-up because you walk in, there's no one around to begin with, then you start to see trail of blood, you start to see corpses, a man who's been bitten on the floor, who's still not quite turned yet, and then you meet your first real zombie of the game, who's a human. It's a great reveal, actually, because you just see a sheriff who's struggling with this person. You think it's a person anyway, and then he's tackled to the ground, and then this zombie rips his jugular out in quite graphic fashion. I'm not sure if I'll have a clip for this, because I'm not sure if YouTube will like that. If I do, I will either have to make it black and white or try and, I don't know, do something stylistic to cover it up, because I know what YouTube's like with violence. It's going to be a tricky video, actually, to do with clips of this game. Anyway, Leon realizes something is going on, and he gets out there as quickly as he can. Then he meets Claire at the door, and she thinks that he's going to shoot her, and obviously she doesn't. He doesn't. She ducks, and the zombie behind her gets shot in the head. And then the game starts. You go into the city, and then you start in the area that you start in the original Resident Evil 2, where it's on fire, and you have to run to the police station. It's quite short, the intro sequence, when you're on the streets of Raccoon City. I think that's one of the criticisms, that you're not on the streets of Raccoon City as much as you were in the original, where it's literally like 30 seconds where you go from the burning crash that you're in to the police station. It's not very long. You do go back on the streets of Raccoon City halfway through the game, but again, you're not on the streets, because the police station and later on the underground lab are the main gameplay hubs for the game. You get to the police station, and that reveal of like the statue in the hallway, that sort of thing, you get a brief musical sting from the original soundtrack, gets your nostalgic hairs going, and it's wonderful. That you just see the full potential of the RE engine unfold in front of you, and it's just phenomenal. And this was running on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I was playing on the One X, so it looked great, and even on the base consoles at the time, because I reviewed this on the PlayStation 4 back in the day, and it looks phenomenal. It was like, wow, this is what gaming has gone from 20 years in the span of it, from 1998 to 2019 at the time. And obviously, no one there in the hallway, and then you go and look for other people under the shutter to your right, which is a very, very tense scene, especially if you're claustrophobic, because it's just like, ugh. And he's having to crawl through blood on the floor, and then you find another police officer who ultimately gets eaten in half. Again, if I have a clip for it, I probably won't show this clip, because I remember YouTube's at the time got flagged for that bit, so I probably won't put a clip in. Gets eaten in half, and then you find a notebook, and then you meet Marvin, who helps you in the police station section. And yeah, the game there ultimately starts, and I chose Leon with my playthrough. I didn't do Claire. I didn't do 2 playthroughs because I didn't have time, because I wanted to move on to a different game at the time. Leon is pretty much classed as the easy setting. Claire's a bit harder because she gets limited weapons, but yeah, it starts from there, and then you have to find medallions to unlock the gate under the statue to get out of the police station. That is your first goal in the game, is to get out of the police station. It's simple, it's quick, and it's brilliant. And quite an elaborate police station, if I'm being honest, to unlock doors. It's not as bad as like in the original, where you had to move 2 statues into one place in certain places to unlock the evidence locker, which I always found was quite absurd and quite funny. But end of the day, video game, you have to think video game logic with these puzzles. It's not always going to be in line with the setting of the area and that sort of thing. And they toned down the elaborate puzzles to kind of fit the fact that you're in a police station, not a museum, to unlock doors. And you've got like the different keys with the different emblems, that sort of thing. And it's great. And the main obstacles obviously you'll move into is that you'll move on to is the zombies. And the main thing that I remember people complaining about with the zombies in 2019 were they were bullet sponges when they were in the original, because these people try to gun them down every corner. That's not the point of the zombies. They're obstacles, yes, but they're not cannon fodder. They're there to get in your way, but you're not supposed to dispense all of your ammo on the zombies. There is quite a detailed dismemberment system in the game. So ultimately, what the best way to kind of get around zombies is to blow their legs off, especially if you're playing on higher settings, and just have them alive so you can maneuver around them quicker. You're not supposed to like shoot every zombie in sight, because if you did, you wouldn't have ammo for the boss fights later on. And not only that, you'll have the lickers, and later on you have Mr. X. Mr. X, if you don't know, was only in the second scenario in the PS1 version, but ultimately they made him there in all the scenarios in the remake. And some people hate him, some people love him. I think he's fine. He doesn't get in the way too much. There were a few moments where I felt he could corner you and you couldn't move sometimes, especially when you're like, okay, I'll duck in a save room, because he can't go into save rooms. He will just wait there, and you think he goes away, and there he is again. And it's just, it can get a bit tedious at times, Mr. X. Something they will try and replicate in the Resident Evil 3 remake, kind of failed with the Stalker mechanic in Resident Evil 3 remake. But I like Mr. X as a character because it gets you familiarized with all the shortcuts in the police station. So you're not just beelining it through all the main corridors, because ultimately he will be in all the main corridors. Even in the main hall, he will run around there, because then you can't save in the main hall. It just makes you more familiar where all the save rooms are, where, or as I said, where all the shortcuts are, that sort of thing. And that's the story done. Let's get into more of the gameplay elements. So the game goes back to survival horror, but with the third person. The fixed camera angles are gone. People were quite miffed about that, and saying, people say, oh, it's just old tech about fixed camera angles. Yes and no. With fixed camera angles, it was done because of a technical limitation, but ultimately you still can do a fixed camera angle survival horror in modern day. But I think Resident Evil with the remake of RE2, they wanted to go with a familiar over-the-shoulder camera angle that most audience would adapt to, as opposed to kind of, alienate people through the fixed camera angle. But throughout interviews, they stressed that this isn't RE4, it's not an action game, it's a survival horror. And it is a survival horror. You have to think about your resources, you have to think about your ammo. It's all there from Resident Evil 2 that you have to think about ammo conservation, how much room you've got in your inventory. But in Resident Evil 2 Remake though, you can expand your inventory with pouches that you find throughout the game, which is great, because I think in the original you only had 8 slots with Leon, and I think it was 8 with Claire too, because in Resident Evil 1 it was 6 with Chris Redfield and 8 with Jill Valentine. And they've modernized it by being able to expand your inventory, which is great. But not only that, with ammunition, it's still quite scarce when you play on normal and hardcore, but you can craft ammo, which is taken from Resident Evil 7, where you have gunpowder, which you can mix 2 gunpowders together, you get handgun ammo, and if you use, I believe it's high-powered gunpowder, you get like shotgun ammo, magnum ammo, that sort of thing. And it works really well, because obviously gunpowder's not abundant like ammunition, because you have to kind of like balance it, like, okay, do I need these bullets or do I need this gunpowder? And of course you still got the safety deposit boxes in all the save rooms, which will carry over into each save room, that sort of thing, which is great. But the only downside of the gameplay is the scenario zapping system. It's not really there like it was in the original, because in the original you could place an item in a locker, and if you did a scenario B with the other character, it would be there for them in that playthrough. It's not really present in the remake, suppose because they had to get this out the door quite quickly, and due to like technical limitations of like there's too much detail and maybe they just didn't have the time to do it. But that's only really the downside of the gameplay. The combat is quite good, still survival horror. You're not going to be aiming with laser precision. It's very much still a survival horror. You have to be careful with your aim. So if you move around too much, because you can move and shoot in this game, you get weapon bloom with your crosshair. But if you stay still long enough, the crosshair will shrink and you'll be accurate. And there is a chance where you'll get a critical shot and the zombie's head might explode. But if you play it on normal and above, that won't happen too often. And obviously if you play on assisted, it will happen more often. But it's always good to kind of like, if you've got enough ammo, to think like, can I get this headshot, this critical headshot to remove that danger out of the way in that corridor. It's like this roll of the dice, like, yeah, I've got time to do this, I'm going to blow this zombie's head off, maybe. The shotgun will do it more often, obviously, but again, you don't want to be dispensing shotgun ammo too much, because that's in very limited supply, and same with like the grenade launcher and that sort of thing. But yeah, the combat's really good. You get the knife, of course, but in this game, the knife has degradation, so you can't just keep using it all the time, because it will eventually run low. You will find spare knives throughout the game, and it's a system they will bring back for Resident Evil 4 remake, which you can upgrade the knife, but you can't upgrade it obviously in RE2. It adds an element of strategy, because when you have a knife on you, you can stab a zombie or a licker or whatever to get them off you so you don't take damage. And the problem is, though, when you do that, that knife will stay in them and you have to get it off them when they're on the floor or whatever. It's always quite hilarious. You're like, oh no, I'm defenseless when they try and grab me. But it's a system that works well. I think I remember people kind of like murmuring, because whenever you bring up weapon degradation in any game, people have their opinions about it, and it's a fair enough opinion, like, because weapon degradation, you either hate it or you love it. I don't mind it. Like, I love Zelda Breath of the Wild and stuff, so it doesn't bother me too much. And it works well in the survival horror setting, because you're not meant to be this invincible person, and it just works really well. And all the staples of like Resident Evil are there, like the herbs. You don't need ink ribbons to save the game anymore, which is great. And I know some people will be like, oh god, it's kind of dumbed down a bit. It's not dumbed down. You can have that system if you want, if you play hardcore mode. But ultimately, I just think the ink ribbon system was just a bit of a dated concept even back in the day. And yeah, they've done things to streamline it, but at the same time, it's still a challenging game. You can't just half-arse it throughout. You have to be on your toes throughout. And this remake does that. I think the real star of the show in this remake is the RE engine, an engine that was already used in Resident Evil 7, but I feel like in this remake it was put to its full potential, because realistic games, they tend not to age particularly well, but I feel the RE engine has its sort of own sort of stylized look to it, where other games where they try to go for a realistic look, you go, oh god, that you can tell when they're released. But RE2 came out 6 years ago when at the time of recording this. It still looks really, really good, considering its age. And yeah, it's phenomenal. Like, you see like the details of like when Leon's in the rain, you can see his clothes wet. The gore system in this game is incredibly detailed, and to put it plainly, horrendous. There's a few times my partner had to look away when I was playing the game, because it's very violent to say the least. It's why I said this is going to be a bit of a headache if I'm going to include clips here on YouTube, because it's just so violent. You see like zombies' heads explode. You see, as I said in the beginning, jugulars being ripped out when they eat you, guts everywhere, blood all over the place. It's just, if you're squeamish, it's probably not a good idea to play this game. But yeah, it's incredible, the RE engine. Facial expressions look great. It's all fully mocapped and mocap performance based, and it just looks really, really good. The performances in the game for a Resident Evil game, and I know that's not saying a lot, are really good, because RE games always have pretty hokey voice acting, and I'd say Resident Evil 7 onwards, it's brilliant, because they got people who know what they're doing with writing, and also they got good actors in too. The acting is really good. Leon occasionally will have his occasional cracks, like when you fight the giant crocodile in the sewers, he'll just go, oh, chew on this, that sort of thing. You go, oh, there's the RE4 Leon trying to crawl in eventually. And yeah, the voice acting across the board is brilliant. The presentation overall is really good. You could argue it's too dark in places, but I would say no, it's not. And the darkness is used really well. It's not like the 7th generation of console of darkness, where it's just purposely dark, where you can't see anything. Darkness is utilized really, really well in this game. Not every room's dark. You have rooms where you have to get your torch out to see where you're going. Others you won't have to. And I just feel lighting in general in this game is used really well. It's really creepy. And the other thing I'd say is probably a bit of a downside is the soundtrack, or I'd say lack thereof. I mean, there is a soundtrack, but it's more sort of atmospheric hums and murmuring, that sort of thing, whereas the original Resident Evil 2 had a really iconic soundtrack, especially the save room theme, which you only really get like a flash of it when you turn on lights in save rooms. Something they would remedy in RE3 and 4 remakes, but the soundtrack is just, it's not there throughout the game, because it's just, as I said, it just uses atmospheric hums and murmurs, that sort of thing, and it works to its effect. And you get the soundtrack when Mr. X is chasing you is really good. You get sort of like electronic, like sort of noise, and but I wish the soundtrack was a bit more present in the game. But the presentation overall is just so good in this remake. You'd be hard done by to find someone to say that the visuals aren't great. As I said, for a 6-year-old game, it's just superb. Resident Evil 2, to me, will always stand as a classic. I mean, the original 1998 release still holds up, in my opinion, and then the 2019 remake. They made a classic of the classic. It's just amazing what they did. And I know people kind of sort of like bemoan remakes these days, and fair enough, because I do agree there's a lot of remakes, remasters, there's quite an oversaturation of it, but certain games, I think they need that treatment. Despite me saying Resident Evil 2 holds up, it might not hold up to someone who's younger than me, who go, oh, look at those graphics. And yeah, they are chunky and blocky, but the atmosphere of the original still holds up, and the atmosphere of the remake dials it up to 11. And I can see them doing more remakes of old games. Like, I wouldn't mind to see a remake of Resident Evil 5. The rumor is that they're remaking Code Veronica at the moment, but Resident Evil as a franchise in general is something that I dearly love. I love horror games. I don't get to play them often because there aren't many horror games that I find that compelling. I think the last one I played was Silent Hill 2, which maybe I'll do a video of that at some point, the remake of that. Yeah, Resident Evil 2 remake is just fantastic. It's 6 years old now at the time of recording this. If you haven't played it, I urge you to play it. It's super cheap these days, especially on Xbox. It's just a brilliant game, and it's very, very replayable too. Like, all the old Resident Evil games are very short, but they're purposely short, so you replay them over and over again to unlock different weapons, different costumes, that sort of thing. Other game modes too, and there are other chapters too. This game got free DLC where you got like different chapters where you play as different characters, and it's great. But Resident Evil 2, the remake, and even the original, highly recommend both of them if you've got the systems to play them. Specifically the systems to play them, the original, I mean. But yeah, Resident Evil 2, so good. If you've got a PlayStation, Xbox, PC, play it now.